This movie is essentially the personification of what is wrong with horror of the last 15 years. Just to list off the reasons. 1, it's a pointless remake. 2, it takes what was good practical effects, thinks they can do better with CGI, and it looks like shit. 3, instead of taking a good cast like the original, it just gets prettier CW looking people who can act. 4, PG-13. That is what's wrong with The Fog. That is why The Fog 2005 has a 4% on Rotten Tomatoes. You know what gets 4% on Rotten Tomatoes? Happy Madison movies. Adam Sandler flicks. From the makers of Halloween. Now, normally, when a remake says something like that, it's to trick you. To say, oh, this is a remake of a film made by the people that made Halloween. In this case, this was actually produced by John Carpenter and Debra Hill. I did not see this when it came out. A few years ago, shortly after high school, I was living with a good friend of mine. We were roommates. And his girlfriend at the time had a bunch of movies like this. And me, being silly, thought this was Stephen King's The Mist, which I heard had a fucked up ending, which it does. So I popped this in, and I was about halfway through before I realized, oh, this is completely fucking stupid and different. This has all the hallmarks of a remake gone wrong. I've already listed off most of them. Now, I know when I do remakes, I'm not supposed to be comparing them to the originals, because there's a series of videos that I want to start in the near future where I actually compare them in the same video. But when a movie is this shitty, and as much as I like the original Fog, because I've stated before, I'm not a ghost movie guy, because most of them are like this. But John Carpenter's original Fog, I think, is a good movie. And when you have that much of a plummet between one version and another, it's going to be hard not to compare, but I'll try to limit myself. This movie follows most of the same beats. I mean, even down to dialogue. In fact, it's almost a shot for shot. Not really shot for shot, but beat for beat. They change little things. Of course, with the cast, instead of Tom Atkins, we have Tom Welling. Yes, Clark Kent from Smallville. Instead of Jamie Lee Curtis, we have Maggie Grace, who I guess was in Lost. Instead of Adrienne Barbeau, we have Selma Blair from Hellboy. Now, obviously I know those people are not going to be in this as the same characters. But when you look at the level of how good those actors are compared to this, this movie doesn't even feel like a fishing community. It feels like a regular town. And also, in this one, okay, essentially it's the same thing as The Fog. There's a clipper boat that was lied to, murdered by townspeople, their valuables stolen. Now, instead of 100 years, it's 134 years, which doesn't make any sense. 100 years makes sense, because that's, like, it's a big anniversary. It's a big thing. 134 years seems random. Also, 134 years, okay. You have the priest, Father Malone. As far as the founding fathers, it's still his grandfather. Father Malone doesn't look that old. And then the other guy, I want to remember his name, because I'm curious about something. Cass, who did he play? Who did he play? I do not remember his name. Kenneth Welsh. Okay. Kenneth Welsh, if you remember my review for George Romero's Survival of the Dead, he's the guy that plays the Malcolm McDowell knockoff. Well, one thing he did well was the Irish accent, because he's Canadian. He talks normal. He talks with an American accent in this one. And in this, he says his father. His father was one of the founding fathers that did that to the people. It's like, really? I understand you're a bit older, but your father? 134 years ago. So yeah, this is almost as bad, timeline-wise, as Texas Chainsaw 3D. I mean, I don't even really need to go into the plot that much, because essentially it's all the same thing. I first realized I was in trouble because the seagrass, the one boat that's out there, that the first attacked boat, you have the Black Comic Relief, a buddy of his who was he was like the TV show maker in Wrong Turn 2. They have a couple girls on the boat. You know, they're playing rap music, or, you know, hip-hop beat is like instrumentals, but they have their camcorder and they're drinking, and, you know, like shitty mid-2000s like camcorder shots of partying. You get shitty deaths in CGI. Of course, the black guy lives because he has to be blamed for it. And Maggie Grace plays Elizabeth, who I guess isn't a hitchhiker passing through. She's from this town, and she keeps having nightmares of these people on a shipwreck, and this woman, this blonde woman, sinking to the bottom, this Victorian-looking woman. And this movie really drills it in your head. I mean, it's... spoiler alert, it's fucking her. Reincarnation. I don't even give a shit. Fuck this movie. You know what really helps, you know, make a twist effective? When you don't drill the obvious in your viewer's head. Okay, so this movie is exceptionally slow. It is 103 minutes. I don't remember how long the original was, but it feels it. It is boring. The fog looks like smoke up until the very end, where it actually gets kind of thick, but still CGI. You have things that don't make sense, like, okay, I'm going to make one comparison. Adrienne Barbeau, her radio station is out at a lighthouse. You got to go down all this huge walkway out in the rocks on the water. She's isolated. Here, Selma Blair, it's like a big tower that what looks like in the middle of town. She sends her broadcasts of "go help my son." She gets in her car and leaves, so she can just do it herself. Oh, and you get several shots of the fog itself being a character. where it will go inside things. Like, it will go inside a generator. And it looks exactly like the shot from Fight Club. Like, when it shows you, like, the pilot light. Just bad CGI. Well, it also gets into her car, causes her car to go off the road, into the water, and it sinks. Well, we see this awful, transparent ghost going around the windows. It even, when she gets out, it holds on to her. It's like, you're showing us a transparent ghost that looks like something out of Goosebumps or like live action Scooby-Doo. You're not really selling that it can grab her. Especially since not all of them are transparent ghosts. For example, there's some that look like zombie hands that when it touches you, you slowly start like burning away, like Silent Hill style. Bad CGI. Oh yeah, the DJ's son. There's this stupid part where, there's no legend about the Elizabeth Dane. The Elizabeth Dane is sort of forgotten in history. You know, that's sort of what made the original interesting. When her son finds the plank of wood that says Dane on it, Adrienne Barbeau sort of gets what that could mean. In this, he finds a hairbrush with barnacles all over it. The whole thing about Elizabeth Dane is unknown. So, you know, it's not foreboding. There's this stupid scene how they all our characters reconvene at the town hall. They start moving shit to block the doors. Now, this looks like a modern done... Hold on. Like a modern done town hall, like the inside. They moved this one, like, cabinet, and there's like this painting of a burning clipper ship. Looks like new paint all around it, so it's like, oh, so they didn't move this cabinet. This movie is just fucking convenience. And the fucking priest. No, Hal Holbrook was a good priest. This one, he's standing in the middle of the town hall, and there's all these, like, glass cabinet display things around him. And in slow motion CGI, they burst. It starts like this tornado of shards of glass around him. And then it starts going through him. No blood, no. And once it comes out, like, it'll go through his back, come out his front. You'll see a little bit of red on the glass. No blood. Thank you, PG-13. Especially since this says unrated version. Same with what I'm assuming the Prom Night remake is, because I actually haven't seen that one yet. Unrated means dick. It doesn't add anything to it. They couldn't even add CGI blood when they've had CGI fucking everything else. Also, and I know I'm already all over the place, but this movie doesn't really deserve for me. You already know I hate it, so. And the story is so close to the original. Just go watch my review for the original. There's also this bum that, you know, he's got his metal detector. He's out at the beach. He finds this a metal ring attached to a giant rope. He keeps pulling on it. It keeps coming out of the sand. Then it starts going into the water, and he's just like pulling on it. It's like this slow-mo, supposed to be dramatic, like walking against the waves as the fog's rolling in. It's like, this movie's not building any fucking tension. I'm surprised this was not written by, you know, Andrew Swift, Brad Fuller, the guys that did like Amityville Horror and shit like that, because it feels like that. the kid. I understand where they're going with it. They're probably trying to show that this kid's kind of brave, but sort of sweet and innocent at the same time. He shuts himself in his bedroom, and he's got this scotch tape. Next time we see him, it's just this botched tape job that's not going to solve anything around his door. Okay, that was just stupid. You know, none of these actors are good representations of their original counterparts. And then the twist is, you know, either she figures out who she is or she's in a trance and the leader kisses her. She turns into her ghostly self. And then they go away. But before that, we finally see what really happened. Instead of the ship being tricked by a bonfire crashing into land, the Founding Fathers actually met them on their ship, stole all their gold, and then set it on fire. And you sort of get that because like they're lowering their boat off the ship, and the captain, I'm guessing captain, his arm's on fire, and he grabs the priest ancestor, who's also a priest, through the window, and he says, "Blood for blood." Which, we get this stupid jump scare where she is at the hospital, finds the bodies of the people on the ship, and one of them comes back and starts walking like a stupid made-for-TV zombie and says, "Blood for blood." Just everything about this just says PG-13, 7th grade, first date horror movie with all its shitty CGI. I know I haven't been going into depth, but there isn't much of anything to this movie. There really isn't. Also, probably the biggest pisser. Okay, that guy Kenneth Welsh, the bad Malcolm McDowell from Survival of the Dead. Okay. So the captain, he's like walking towards him, like he really wants to get him. But like every step he takes, Kenneth Welsh is like tumbling and like rolling. Like imagine rolling down a hill, but like straight. Like whenever the ghost walks, he like pushes force against him. It's just like, you know, if you want to catch someone, turn your force pushing powers off. You'll get him a lot faster. Pushes him all the way to the cemetery. And we get what the only scene that even looks like it has potential to be creepy or scary. He sort of, you know, he's on the ground, he's looking around, and we see all these transparent, shadowy, ghostly figures scattered all throughout the cemetery, staring at him. You know what would make that scary? If they weren't CGI transparent ghosts. If you made them like, you know, like not see-through, like ghosts, made them look like actual beings, it's a little more scarier, because it's like, yeah, they're actually there and they're gonna fuck you up. I don't know what else to say about this movie. Like, all I want to do is compare it to the original. But, you know, that's all I got for this. I mean, the more I talk about it, the more I'm just gonna rip on it. And those were all the major points. And yeah, this movie is completely pointless. I mean, 2005, I was in like 7th or 8th grade. I don't remember there being such a demand for The Fog. I don't know why it was remade. I don't know why it was remade in such a shitty way. And this was 2005. Hollywood still did not learn, because after this, they still kept using CGI, remaking movies that people weren't asking to be remade, some PG-13, almost all with, you know, pretty, you know, fresh, pretty CW faces that can't act. So yeah, this movie fucking sucks. It's one of the worst remakes. I mean, even for a remake that it's not even loosely based or loosely reimagined, it's almost the exact same plot, same character names, even down to very small scenes that are all done almost exactly the same. It's pretty much like from Wreck to Quarantine. Except Quarantine's actually a decent movie. I like that. Everything in this that they do different is terrible. And even watching the making of, they really feel like they can accomplish more with CGI. Which, yeah, that might be true, but it fucking looks like ass. You want to know why CGI is terrible in horror movies and unscary? Watch this movie. It's all you need to know. I'll just end it right there. So, for Room 237, thank you for watching.